Well, hey there, friends. Welcome to another exciting edition of Equip with Chris Brooks. I'm so fired up that you've joined us today. Why don't you do me a favor? Strap on your seatbelt. We're going to navigate through the contours of culture, as always, with the lens of the biblical worldview on. Before we do that, let me remind you, this is the day that the Lord has made. He has given it as a gift so that you and I can rejoice and be glad in it. So let's do just that. Let's follow the words of the Apostle Paul. Let's rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Well, it's not news to you or to me that we are living in a technologically revolutionary moment. This moment is reshaping the world around us. I'm talking specifically about the technological revolution of AI. How should we feel about it? How should we engage it? I want to talk about that today as Christians. I know there is a world of opinion out there. Some folks are super cautious about it. Others are very confused about it. But are there ways that we can use it in such a compelling way that it actually glorifies God and produces human flourishing? So that's the question of the day. On social media, I'm also going to take your calls. How can Christians use AI for the glory of God and for the good of humanity? I want you to give me a call at 877-LIVE-675. That's 877-548-3675. Make your case. I want to hear from you. Maybe you say, Pastor Chris, we should avoid it at all costs. It's not redeemable. Maybe you're on the other end and say, no, we need to be diving in as builders, shaping, architecting this technological revolution. Or maybe you're a little bit on the fence and you say, I don't know how we fit into all of this. I'd love to hear from those of you that are on the design end of things, but I also love to hear from you who are just curious about it and trying to figure it all out. And those who are concerned, let's pray together. 877-548-3675. How can Christians use AI for the glory of God and the good of humanity? If you're not asking that question, you need to. I need to. Every one of us does for this current cultural moment. Well, one person that is definitely asking the question is Nick Skitlin. He is vice president for a great organization called Gloo, Gloo, Gloo Developer. He's a developer there, and he oversees AI research for them. He's leading initiatives to shape open values alignment, AI that supports human flourishing. Before joining Gloo, he spent 2 decades at NASA as a chief technologist there and has written a great book, What Comes Next? Shaping the Future in an Ever-Changing World. Nick joins us now. Nick, how are you, brother?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well.
Hey, here's my starting question. How does a kid from North Dakota grow up to work for NASA and become an AI expert?
Oh, that's such a good question, Chris. I took a wrong turn and I ended up in Texas. No, but actually, it's kind of funny because I was in kindergarten when the Challenger accident happened. And I remember my teacher rolling in the car and we were watching the launch and that happened. And, obviously it's a great tragedy and one of those moments in spaceflight history that you remember. And I didn't forget. In fact, it just really set my life off in a trajectory. I wanted to be on the edge of exploration and the frontier and ended up working at NASA for 25 years in the chief technologist role right there at the end, and really was fortunate to have an amazing career, truly working at the edge of space exploration and frontiers.
I want to give a quote from Alan Train that said, machines take me by surprise with great frequency. What does that mean?
Oh, I love that. Alan Turing quote is really popular in the AI world, and I love it because it really does, I think, capture our fascination with machines, right? We're both fascinated and also slightly fearful of this technology of machines when machines do things that maybe even surprise us, that we don't expect them to do. One of the stories that we would tell at NASA's, or I would hear about at NASA, is that when email first came out, people were really, really afraid of email, and people would refuse to actually use email. They'd still print things out and write letters. But over time, people are like, oh, this technology isn't that bad. Like, we can actually be more effective and productive and efficient using this technology. And now, of course, everybody uses email. And I think anytime we see new technology come out, especially if we don't really understand it or we haven't experimented with it yet, we can be both fearful and fascinated by it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, friends, if you've ever wanted to ask a question of an AI specialist, well, today is your day. If you've ever wanted to sit across, grab a cup of coffee with a NASA technologist, today is your day. How frequently will we have access to someone like Nick? So you give a call. Maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a pastor, maybe you're trying to figure out how to relate to AI, how to utilize AI for the glory of God, for human flourishing. That's why I brought Nick on. We're going to dive into that in just a moment. The phone number to join the conversation, I'm going to take your calls at 877-LIVE-675. That's 877-548-3675. If you're a teacher trying to navigate this as well, 877-548-3675. And as always, those of you who are designers and builders of the technology, talk a little bit about Glue, the company, and your role there.
Yeah, Glue is an amazing company. It's a technology company that really sits at that intersection of faith and technology. So we want to really embrace the innovation that we see coming from Silicon Valley and the AI world, but we also really want to be faithful to the mandate that we as Christians have to steward creation well. And so this company exists to serve what we call the faith and flourishing ecosystem, which is made up of course, churches, 450,000 churches across America, but also the nonprofits, the faith-based organizations, and other companies that are serving this ecosystem as well. We say often that we exist to serve those who serve others, and we really believe in that. Glue has a lot of things going on, but AI is a really big part of what we're doing, and we build AI that the church can trust and use, and we also do a lot of research to help Christians navigate this new frontier.
Well, I think it's cool that one of our first questions came from Joe. Joe just called and asked this question. Hey, I'm a high school teacher. Would it be possible, he's asking on behalf of his students, to create a Christian company that develops AI systems from a biblical perspective that Christians can reliably use that will be safe for them?
That is a great question, Joe. I am a father of 3 kids myself, and I am married to a teacher, and I'm very sensitive to students in particular using technology. A lot of the research that we do at Glue is around what we call values-aligned AI. We want to see technology built that aligns with our values as a Christian. We talk a lot about human flourishing and values alignment in a Christian worldview perspective. And for all those reasons, what Glue actually does is what you're asking right now, is we create technology systems, harnesses, AI platforms that you can use and you can trust and that others can build on top of. And I think what we're going to see more and more parents and teachers and Christians advocating for technology. We need to be an active voice in shaping the technology that is being developed and to communicate that our values as a father, as a teacher, as a Christian, as a friend, as a pastor really matter in that.
We're going to be taking your calls at 877-LIVE-675. You guys just released some new research on how pastors are using AI more than you think. We're going to dive into that, the good, the bad, the rights, the wrongs that we should be thinking about as we try to engage AI for the glory of God and for the good of humanity. But I really want to go back to what Joe just asked. I thought it was a great question. Love high school teachers. My dad taught high school for 27 years, so I'm got a special place in my heart for high school teachers. So, Joe, thank you for asking the question. But talk about the Flourishing AI Benchmark. This work that you guys have done, Nick, is incredible. Can you just talk about it?
Yeah, so the flourishing benchmark is something that you can access on the glue.com website. If you just go glue.com/FAI. And what we do is we evaluate the latest models when they come out from a perspective of human flourishing across 7 domains. And so we look at them, for example, from character, health, happiness, finances, relationship, faith, and meaning. Those 7 dimensions, how does AI promote good in all circumstances? How does it help with our faith? How does it help with our relationships with one another? And oftentimes in the AI world, there are benchmarks that evaluate the latest models, and you may hear about them all the time. This new model is faster than everything else. It's cheaper or more efficient. But we recognize the gap that we needed also AI to be advancing human flourishing, not undercutting it. And so this research is grounded in work done at Harvard University with the Flourishing Initiative, as well as Baylor. And then we've expanded it to apply it specifically to AI. So you can go on the website and you can see how all the models do from a perspective of human flourishing, just generally, not even from a Christian or religious standpoint, but you can also look at it from a Christian perspective. And we use this to inform our own work, and we also use it to try to shape the industry overall to help communicate that these values really matter.
I know you guys are very committed to harm prevention, to active promotion of human welfare, and so this flourishing AI is so important, friends. We're going to make sure the link is connected to our website as well. So if it's simpler for you guys, just go to equipradio.org, equipradio.org, and we'll make sure that the flourishing AI white paper research, all of it is there for you to be able to see and be able to learn and grow from. You guys asked a ton of questions of AI. Can you just mention a few of the questions you guys asked?
Chris, are you asking me what questions we asked about
Nick,
AI?
Yep.
Yeah.
When you guys were testing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we recognize that there's a lot of benchmarks in the industry that are measuring for what we call essentially a moral or ethical floor. A lot of large companies are looking for AI that is safe, that is ethical, but they're not looking at it from a perspective, from a Christian perspective, for example. A good example that I give is we'll ask the models a question, something an open-ended question like, should I forgive somebody who hurt me?
Yeah.
And as a pastor, there is a response there that's grounded in scripture, but that might be different than what you hear online or in a secular world or on Reddit, as an example, where the output of a model can simply be, well, do what makes you feel happy.
That's right.
But we know from a biblical perspective that is not a Christian understanding of forgiveness. So that's one example, and you can even take it and apply this to finances, right? If you ask a simple question of AI, how should I manage my budget? Well, as a father that attends church on a Sunday with my family, I want my kids to hear, hey, when it comes to finances, actually the first thing you need to know, this is crazy, but it's not your money. That's God's money. And your role, given that, is that you are a steward. Now, that is very countercultural. That is not what you're going to get from a secular, pluralistic understanding of the world. And the major frontier labs that are creating AI, they're using data that is trained on the internet, which is pluralistic and secular. And so the responses you would get would be very different. So we'll ask questions like that, and then we'll evaluate it, we'll quantify it, and publish scores to say, across the board, we see these models essentially systematically underperform across all 7 dimensions of human flourishing that I talked about previously.
Yeah, and you guys are addressing it. Man, friends, aren't you glad that there's an organization, a company like Glue out there, and friends like Nick that are on the front lines of shaping, building, designing, and leading in this technological moment? If you've ever wanted to sit across from a NASA technologist, if you've ever wanted to ask an AI specialist a question about what it means to be a Christian engaging with this technology, today is your day. We're going to dive into some great research about how pastors are using it. We're going to take your calls, your questions as well. 877-LIVE, 675 is the number. Or go to equipradio.org. That's equipradio.org. Whatever you do, stick and stay. Much more to come next up on Equip. Not every parenting challenge ends when your kids grow up. Sometimes the hardest season is when they're adults. Resolve Conflict and Find Peace and Hope with Adult Children is a book by Kathy Cook that helps parents grieve what's been lost, reset expectations, and pursue healing with wisdom, prayer, and grace. We'd love to send you a copy today with a gift of any amount to Equip. Simply call 888-644-4144 or visit equipradio.org. Your phone calls coming in today. Absolutely awesome. Friends are calling from around the country with questions for Nick Skidlin. He is the AI expert that is joining us today. He works as vice president at Gloo, Gloo, a wonderful company. It's helping Christians to think biblically about this technological moment. Before we go to your questions, Nick, what is unique about this technological moment? What makes it different than, say, when the internet was introduced or social media was introduced?
Yeah, we get this question a lot. It's very much a Gutenberg moment for our generation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing technology. When I was at NASA, I had a chance to oversee a portfolio of technology from nuclear fusion to robotics. And part of the reason I left NASA to work in AI is because this moment is unlike anything else, probably in our lifetimes, where AI, like the Gutenberg press, it's democratizing information. It's giving people access to information and data in ways that really will change and affect every part of our lives, theologically, how we access education, how we learn, how we grow, how we do our jobs, and I will say even how we relate to one another. Technology is mediating the human experience for almost everybody, and more so. And as again, as Christians, we need to think about what that means for how we relate with others, how we are on mission in this world, and how we navigate all of it.
Friends, I want you to give us a call like Candy in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Candy, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for giving us a call. I'd love to give you an opportunity to ask Nick a question. So what's your question for Nick today?
Hi, and thank you so much for having me on. So my question is more so a data governance type question. So you think about some of the folks who have pioneered AI, they're kind of putting out these different videos or commentaries here or there saying, we need to really pay attention to the pace at which AI is being implemented because, the technology itself is advancing much more rapidly than ever before. But is governance of this keeping up with that pace? And what does that mean to us right now based on where we are? And what might the future look like in terms of what should we be thinking about as the world itself is trying to grapple with the sheer speed of the implementation of AI? So I want a perspective on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And having worked on the frontier of technology for my entire career, I can tell you definitely governance is not keeping pace, right? Technology and the frontier is always moving faster than governance, than policy, than organizations, than culture, even things like safety can keep up with. And so I think your question is really wise in asking a question like that, right? AI is being deployed at a completely different pace than we are even comfortable with. I work in the industry and it's hard to keep up with the pace of the industry. Every week there is a new model to use that's better than the last one, et cetera. I think, again, we have a critical role in asking questions like this, and not in a way that's necessary to slow down the pace of innovation, but to apply it well to the world with which we live in and find ourselves in. And so that's why I think sometimes people say, I'm just going to go live in a bubble. I'm going to completely detach myself from all technology. And I do not think as Christians, that is our mandate, our calling, our mission. I think we have to engage with it. And that might mean, having a voice in regulation, in policy. Maybe it's in your school and thinking about how AI is used there. Maybe it's in legislation. Maybe it's in your church and thinking about an AI policy for your church. There's a lot of opportunity to be a positive voice in the conversation right at the moment.
Candy, I appreciate you giving us a call. Certainly something that we all need to be thinking about. So appreciate you listening, and want to encourage you to continue to do so. Nick, let's go to another call. So many are coming in. Let's go to Nicolette, who's been listening in Illinois. Nicolette, thanks for calling. What's your question for Nick?
Hi, I just have a question. It's more a comment just about AI in general, but more about where do we draw the line? Because I think that I've been a Christian my whole life, and I've also been an artist my whole life. I'm an actress, and already just within this first year of booming AI, I have seen AI musicians, AI artists, AI generated signs everywhere you go. And I think that because God created us in his image as creators, and this is just the beginning, people are already depending on a machine to do what we as humans have the complete mental and physical facilities to do. And I think AI is becoming more intelligent, but it's making the human race less and less intelligent because it's doing all the work for us. And I refuse to use it because of that. So I just think, where do we draw the line? Because people can't even come up with an email on their own anymore, or a recipe on their own anymore. And I think, where do we draw the line? Because it's already seemed to be getting out of hand, and it's only the first couple of years of this.
So, Nick, obviously that's a hard question. I'm sure there's no exact science, but give us a framework for what Nicolette is concerned about. I think her question is reflective of a lot of hearts as we see jobs go away, as we see the impact it's having on a generation. So how do we create a framework for where to draw the line?
Yeah, Nicolette, I really appreciate that question. It's one that I think about quite a bit. I think about Genesis. In the beginning, God, fifth word of the Bible, created. It's incredible that we are creators made in God's image as a creator, and we have a stewardship responsibility in that, right? And we do not want to outsource that responsibility. I think the quick answer I have to this, and maybe it's not totally satisfying to everybody, but the line, in my opinion, is that we should not be outsourcing our human judgment. We have a capacity made in God's image. He's created us towards human flourishing and towards relationship with one another, and towards a missional mandate that we are on. And we have discernment in that, a stewardship responsibility in that, and a judgment in that. And I think that applies for both pastors as well as just any Christian. We have maybe even a higher call and a higher responsibility when it comes to this. We will not be able to slow down the pace of technology. It would be really foolish of us to think about wanting to try to do that. It's not something that we can control, right? What we can control is how we show up in the world and help others navigate this moment. And, and that means maybe really wrestling with where am I comfortable with technology being used or not used? Just because technology can do it, should it do it? And we should ask that question. We should pause long enough to lament the problem that we're trying to solve and say, is technology the right solution to this? Or maybe good old fashioned human relationship and conversation might be sufficient enough.
Friends, you guys are asking phenomenal questions. I want you to keep calling 877-LIVE-675. If you're on hold, we will get to you, I promise. We're going to get to as many calls as we can. You've used the term, Nick, before, missional AI. What is that term, and how do you guys use that at Glue?
Yeah, missional AI is a term that I love because I love to think about our mandate as Christians, being on mission in this world. And so missional AI is the idea applied to AI development itself. It's in many ways a mission field. It's not just a tool that people are using, but it's a new way of working, a new way of thinking. And so as Christians, we have a conviction not to react, but to show up actively and be present in the conversation, to build AI that serves human flourishing, to shape AI where we can with our distinctly Christian voice and our set of values to help people navigate it. There's actually, I'll just give a plug. There's a really amazing conference called the Missional AI Conference that happens once a year. We're a big part of that conference. It's where a lot of Christian developers, researchers, technologists, ethicists, leaders show up to really kind of think about what's happening at the moment and how we shape this in a way that advances human flourishing.
I got a good friend, John Stone Street. Nick, you may know John. He works at the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. He's the president over there. He has this saying that I love, and that is that outrage is not a strategy. And I think it's important for us as Christians to understand that outrage is certainly an emotion, lament as well. And so there are things that are going to maybe frustrate you, maybe cause you to lament. But just understand, after you experience that emotion, that feeling, you still need a strategy for how we're going to be a redemptive force in this cultural moment. And there's a lot of ways for it to express itself. Certainly abstaining in certain cases is really important. But also for those of you who are designers and builders, there's a lot that we can do in making sure that AI is used for the glory of God and for human flourishing, the good of humanity. We'll talk to Nick about how that can happen on the other side of this break. What can builders learn from Nehemiah, the book of Nehemiah? We'll talk about that. We'll try to help those of you who are in the business world and pastors, some fresh research about how pastors are engaging AI and how we can do it for the glory of God and the good of humanity. Don't go anywhere. Much more to come next up on Equip. What a great conversation with Nick Skitlin. He's a vice president at Gloo. It's a wonderful company, GLOO. I want you to learn more about them. They're leading the way as Christian thought leaders in the space of AI. Find out more at equipradio.org. Want to go back to the phone lines. Deborah in Brook Park, Ohio. Thanks for listening. What's your question for Nick?
The question is, recently I heard about Elon Musk's Grok, and Grok has led to the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian Bible. Now, is that really true or not? And also, are they planning on merging our DNA with AI in the future?
So obviously that's multiple questions. So I do commend you for sneaking in a few extras, Deborah. Good for you. I'd be interested in knowing what you mean by they led to the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian Bible. Obviously, the Ethiopian Bible has been around for a long, long time. Dead Sea Scrolls was a discovery that was made decades ago. And big shout out to the Bible Museum in Washington, D.C. and others that have helped to fund continuous research and tours for folks to be able to learn more about these phenomena. So I'm not sure, Nick, how you would respond to that.
Yeah, Deborah, thank you for the question. I do think that there's a lot of stuff that circulates online where it kind of conflates some things that are happening, Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian Bible, as Chris mentioned, things from the past with new technology like AI, and it can become really interesting to click on and kind of go down the trail of. But in this case, I don't have a lot of information on it. It doesn't sound like a credible claim. Yeah. But what I can say is that I do think that technology can be applied in really amazing ways. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls as an example, we live in a time where we can take ancient artifacts that have so much more to tell us and apply technology and uncover new things. That's a really great application of how AI could help us understand, a historical context more. So I think, like I said before, the thing we never want to do is outsource our judgment to media, to things we see online, and to AI, and to just be discerning when you read it. We read something like that, say, does that make sense? And what can I learn from that?
All right, for the common Christian, and I want to get to the builder and designer in just a moment, but for the common Christian, what are your thoughts about AI, Bible studies, how it can help maybe facilitate Bible studies or even the sharing of the gospel? Can it be a helpful resource in this area?
Yeah, I think for the average Christian doing a personal Bible study as an example, I think it can be genuinely helpful, right? As long as we understand and keep it in its proper place as a research assistant and recognizing that it essentially comes with a worldview, right? It should never replace the Spirit's work in our own life, the discipline of sitting with the Bible for yourself, and of course, not your discernment and judgment in that. But practically, if it helps, to understand a difficult passage, to unpack that more, to understand the historical context behind the passage, the cultural context, cross-referencing things. That's a great way to use AI. And I think the same thing in terms of evangelical
Evangelism. Yep.
conversation. Thank you. Yes, evangelism. But the conversations we can have with others, sometimes just like me just now, it's hard to find the right words. And it's you can use AI to really frame out a conversation to have with somebody. But again, it should never replace the actual conversation.
Let's talk about, I teased this out before we went to break. I heard a talk that you did that was phenomenal, Nick, on builders and what we can learn from Nehemiah. And I thought it was great. So there's a lot of folks listening to us right now, and they're actually designers of AI technology. What can they learn from the book of Nehemiah?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when the last time you read the book Nehemiah was, but I encourage you to check it out. It's actually a phenomenal book. Chapter 3 in particular is about this building of the wall, right? And when you first kind of open it up, it kind of reads like a construction log, name after name, family after family. And it points out that each one of them was assigned a specific section of the wall, from everyone from goldsmiths to perfume makers, priests and merchants, family members. And the first lesson we see here for builders is that the wall isn't accomplished by just one person. There's a community of people that come alongside, each have a section that they're responsible for. And that community holds one another accountable. So when we're thinking about building AI, we should think about building it in community. And then we should think about using common tools that are values aligned, tools that we can trust, AI that reflects our worldview, so that we can build with tools that we trust. We know that the hammer is going to work when we hit the nail on the head. And finally, the last thing we always point out about Nehemiah is that, interestingly, there's a shared standard. It's the cubit. And so Nehemiah's builders weren't just kind of coming up with their own thing, they're improvising on their own measurements. They were building their section to a common standard. And that really goes back to the conversation, Chris, you and I were having about the benchmarks and why we have a benchmark for human flourishing that serves people, not just, advances technology.
I'm so grateful for the work you guys are doing at Glue. I mean, it's such a home run to have you on our side and really as thought leaders in this space. It's a blessing. And for a lot of folks, they haven't heard about the company, maybe haven't benefited from the incredible work you guys are doing. And I'd love for our friends who are working in this space to know about Glue, but also just the Christian community more broadly, whether you are a business leader, a person in politics, or Christian trying to just do faithfully live out your Christian faith and commitment before watching world. Glue can be a huge blessing and asset in helping us to think about our cultural moment well. Let's go back to the phone lines. Rael is listening in Springfield, Illinois. Did I pronounce that right?
Say it again.
Rael.
Yes, it's Rael. Yes.
All right. There we go.
Thank you for
there we
taking
go.
my call.
All right,
Thank you.
Rael.
Okay,
Thank
I
you
have
for listening. What's your question?
I have a quick comment and then I have a specific question. My quick comment is I definitely don't think that AI is creating more readers, but it's creating more writers. I'm an author. And I got friends that are saying, I published a book. And I'm like, it took me 9 years to write this book. But anyway, that just bothers me.
I feel your pain. Go right ahead.
My questions. I'm going into my second year of my PhD. I waited late in life. I'll be 57. And I cried because I was devastated that my professors, they used some AI tool, including Turnitin, and there was some false detections, and I had to call the man on the phone like, I don't know what you're talking about. I wrote this, I'm long-winded, and this is my work. So after much conversation, he did give me the passing grade, but he asked me not to use AI in the future in a way that did not hold integrity. And I was still offended. So here's my question. I really was going to drop out because I'm thinking maybe I waited too late and AI is ahead of me. And my degree is in psychology, cultural and educational psychology. Encourage me to stay in school and understand how AI can benefit me as I pursue this doctoral degree.
Well, first off, Nick, I want you to respond. But first off, Rael, I just want to say kudos to you for obeying the Lord. Listen, I don't know what Nick is going to say about AI, but here's what I do know, is that when God has called you to something, it's our responsibility to be obedient and leave the consequences to him. So your job is to be obedient, to remain faithful to the call of Christ in your life, and to trust him that his grace is sufficient. You're doing what God has called you to do. He never said it'd be easy, but he did say he'd be with you. So hang in there, and we certainly will be praying that God will use the incredible work you're doing to benefit others. Remember, we're not in school for just the what of school, but for the who. There are people who will benefit on the other side of all the sacrifice, study, and work that you're doing. So hang in there. Think about the people who you're there for, not just for yourself, and keep doing your great work. Nick, what do you want to say to Rael?
Yeah, Rael, I'll just really build on what Chris is saying. I mean, that's a very real and a very painful situation that I think is becoming more common because a lot of these AI grading tools are notoriously incorrect. Your integrity isn't determined by the algorithm. So I really do also encourage you to stay diligent in your work. It's amazing what you're doing. I applaud you for doing it, later in your life. That's incredible that you are curious and that you are continuing to learn and grow. It reminds me of a short story. I'll tell it really quick. I do Ironman races and I love Ironman races. I've done a couple of them, but I heard a talk from a guy who's done 100 Ironman races in a row. And he was given a talk and he said, at some point at race 30, someone started critiquing him in something he was doing, and he almost gave up. And he was unpacking how much he would have regretted the decision if he would have let something like that was only a very small part of the overall journey, discourage him enough that he gave up. So it's the same thing with you. That is a small moment in a very long journey towards a PhD, which is a much bigger story. So don't ever lose yourself, in a small detail like that in a much bigger story.
Yeah, and I love that you keep coming back to something that's really important as we think about how we consume, how we interact, how we use AI. Let's not lose our souls. Let's not use our human agency. Let's not use our creativity. Now, on the other end of things, one of the things that I recognize is that people who have been in privileged positions have always had research assistants. What AI does is make that type of support now available at a level of affordability and access that only the privileged few used to have. So I think that there is some space to be able to say, man, this is great that now people have greater access for support and research, but not to the extent that it replaces your own ideas, your own soul, your own agency, your own voice. God has made us fearfully, wonderfully unique, a gift of his grace to a world that needs to see our humanity. The world doesn't just need faster processing, more information. It needs the unique spark of grace that God has placed in each one of us. And so make sure you're bringing your whole self to the world and don't ever let AI replace that. We're going to take a final break. We're going to come back and talk about what pastors need to know about interacting with AI for the glory of God and the good of humanity. Don't go anywhere. Much more to come next up on Equip. In today's rapidly changing culture, Christians need solid biblical guidance more than ever. That's our mission here at Equip, to provide biblical wisdom for life's toughest questions. When you step in as an equipper, you're not just giving. Your monthly support helps to offer clarity and hope to a confused and anxious culture. And you'll get exclusive resources and updates from us all year long. Join our team of monthly supporters today. Call 888-644-4144 or visit equipradio.org. New research is out. Gloo has partnered together with Barna Research Group, our friends over at Barna, to produce a report on the research they've done for pastors using AI. And the stats and the headlines may surprise you, but the bottom line is it seems like pastors are feeling three things strongly: caution, curiosity, and conflict within their hearts. Give us at a glance what you guys discovered through this research, Nick.
Yeah, so this is a year-long partnership Gloo and Barna had as part of the State of the Church study, and we were looking specifically at how AI is really showing up in the church, both congregants and pastors. And so the topic here is, how are pastors using AI? Are pastors using AI? And so I don't know where you're coming from, but the answer is yes, pastors are using AI. Only 13% of pastors say they don't use AI at all, which means 87% of pastors are using AI. And that number might surprise you one way or the other, but if you think about it, kind of makes a lot of sense. Pastors are really some of the most overextended leaders in America. You think about how much a pastor at a mid-sized church in the U.S. has on their plate. Like, they're the CEO, they're the chaplain. Oftentimes they're the person literally creating the content that goes out on social media, in addition to writing a sermon and visiting hospitals. There's a lot that a pastor is doing. And so it's not surprising. It's actually very practical that pastors would be using AI. I think what surprises maybe more people when you look into it is thinking about how they're using it. And maybe that's what we can talk about next.
Yeah, let's dive into that, because Daniel Copeland, who you'll know as the vice president of research over at Barna, said that pastors are predominantly using AI for behind-the-scenes work as a thought partner. He goes on to say they're using it to prepare for ministry, not replace what happens when they actually meet with people. Can you talk a little bit about what you discovered about how pastors are using it?
Yeah, and I think this should be the really encouraging part to all of us. I mean, we look to our pastors to help us. They should be discerning. They should understand the theology. They shouldn't be outsourcing that type of work to AI. And what we're seeing is that pastors are using it for things, that, like, the administrative stuff, like brainstorming, idea generation is 50%. Biblical research is 36%. Admin tasks are 34%. But what they're not doing is substituting the work in the pulpit for AI. This is where they show up. If you think about a pastor's job, it's ultimately about human formation, right? We want them to be freed up of some of the other tasks that AI can make more efficient, so they can do the things like pastoral care, be a spiritual authority in our lives, the relational core of ministry that requires human-to-human relationship. And so AI can help serve that, but it should never replace that. And that's what we're seeing in the data.
Yeah, and I think that for Christians who are nervous about how's my church being shaped by this, hopefully that is encouraging. But with that being said, what are some guidelines that you would say, hey, pastors, make sure you think about this to protect your soul as you engage with AI?
Well, you think about pastors, even writing sermons, because one of the things we get oftentimes is, the use of pastors. Use of AI for pastors to write sermons has actually doubled from 12% to 24% in the past year. But if you think about it, pastors have always had commentaries that they refer to and research references that they're looking for their theological angles from. And so I think it's still the same, right? Like, you don't want to just copy the research reference and call that your sermon. You want to use whatever technology you have available to write your sermon. You don't want to outsource your judgment. You don't want to outsource your voice in the pulpit. You want to protect those relational hours and not outsource that to AI. And that might even sound pretty fictional, but imagine an AI robot pastor. Do we want that? Do we not want that? I would say we don't want that, right? The pastor should never be replaced, but it can be served well with technology to do the missional work that pastors are called to.
Yeah. What do you say to Christians who maybe aren't pastors, but in other positions of influence, maybe in the business space or educational space or political public servant space, about what they should be thinking concerning AI?
It's really very similar. I think first off, let's not underestimate how much AI is actually changing the world, because sometimes I think people aren't really recognizing how fast this pace of technology change is. And so I think that means we should probably engage more. We should experiment more and understand it ourselves, but we should never, ever, ever let it mediate our human relationship with others and outsource our judgment. We shouldn't let it replace our own voice. We should be discerning in all that we do.
Yeah, and that discernment is something that happens communally, not just individually. We need support in that. And so, friends, I just want to say, I think one of the greatest things that Nick and Glue are doing is helping us not to just simply be afraid. Again, outrage is not a strategy. Fear is not a strategy either. We have to think Christianly about this, but you took us back earlier with a statement. You said, Nick, this is our Gutenberg moment. For those who don't know, Gutenberg Press revolutionized the way we had access to books and writings. We no longer needed scribes to do it. We can mass copy, mass produce things. And in a similar way, AI is transitioning our culture, but yet Christians have always had to think Christianly while living in a rapidly changing world. That's what Glue is here to help us to do, and so grateful for it. Nick, you're a huge blessing. Thanks for carving out time at a coffee shop to have a conversation on a Friday. We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much. What a privilege to be here.
We'll continue to pray for you and for Glue. And friends, I want to encourage you to go to our website. There's a whole plethora of resources that you will find if you get connected to Glue. You can find out more at our website, equipradio.org, equipradio.org. And I want you as a Christian to think about the redemptive opportunities we have to engage in every aspect of culture. God has not called us to run from culture, but to be in it, not of it, but in it. So how can we be in this space, as well as education and finance and business and all other spaces, for the glory of God and for the good of humanity? I can't wait till we're together again next time. Until then, remember, Equip with Chris Brooks is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.